Okay, so The Amazing Spider-Man 2, just to get it out of the way, I do like all of the Spider-Man movies. I guess I'll quickly talk about what I thought about the other Spider-Man movies before I get into The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I won't dwell on them for too long, because if you care that much about what I think about these movies, I've done a video on every single one of them, so you can just go check them out if you care that much. Okay, so my favourite Spider-Man movie is hands down Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2 of course, with Doc Ock. That's my favourite. Followed by Spider-Man 3, which I think is an unpopular opinion. Like, a lot of people seem to hate Spider-Man 3. I think one of the big problems with that movie, well, a lot of people have with that movie, is the emo, cocky, dancing Peter stuff. Like when he gets all like emo and does like that strut down New York, you know, down the streets of New York. And when he's doing the dance in the club as well. A lot of people have a problem with those kind of scenes. They think they're really goofy and really cringy. I never really had a problem with them, because the Sam Raimi movies were always really campy and silly and stupid anyway, and fun. And to me, those scenes with Peter kind of just fit in. It felt as if they fit into the rest of the movie just fine, into the rest of the trilogy just fine. Like, it's campy just like the rest of the trilogy. So I never had a problem with those scenes, although a lot of people do. Really, the only problem the only major problem I have with Spider-Man 3 would be Venom. Venom was done terribly, I will admit. Aside from that, though, I think the movie's great. Just my opinion, of course. The next movie would be The Amazing Spider-Man with the Lizard, one, you know, the more recent one, the reboot or the remake, whatever you want to call it. Then my least favourite Spider-Man movie would be the original with Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. I still like it, it's just my least favourite. But Willem Dafoe is hands down the best part of that movie. Okay, so The Amazing Spider-Man 2. If you want a quick rundown on the plot, not much to say. Spider-Man's continuing to be Spider-Man. The new villain, the new main villain is Electro. There's also Rhino and the Green Goblin, but they're not in the movie that much. But the main villain is Electro. So it's Spider-Man fighting Electro. You know, Spider-Man being Spider-Man. You know what you're getting into. It's a Spider-Man movie. Okay, so going into this movie, I didn't expect this to be any good at all. Like, when I saw the trailers for this thing, it just didn't look good. I hated the costumes that the villains had. I really hated how Rhino looked, how the Green Goblin looked, and how Electro looked. I just thought their like designs were just terrible. I couldn't stand them. And on top of that, the trailer just looked really goofy, really cheesy. And that's like, these movies, they're not supposed to be like goofy or cheesy. They're like this new reboot series, whatever you want to call it, because they're not, like, you can see the tone of these movies, they're trying to make it a bit more darker, these movies. So whenever something really stupid or cringy happens, it's far more noticeable than what it was in the Sam Raimi trilogy. Like that crane sequence in The Amazing Spider-Man, hands down one of the worst sequences I've ever seen in a movie. I mean, that crane sequence, it's quite, that was something else. Okay, so anyway, back to The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It just didn't look like any good, in my opinion, when I saw the trailers. Just everything about it, I don't know. The trailers, I just didn't like the looks of it. And like I already said, the design, the costumes that the villains had, that was a huge problem I had with this movie before I saw it. Just like seeing the trailer and watching the villains in the trailer. I just hated how they looked. Okay, so now I've seen the movie, I'm actually really surprised. Like, I was ready to just hate this movie. I was so sure I was going to hate it, and I actually really like this movie. If you want to know where I would rank this amongst the other Spider-Man movies, I think I would put it as my second favourite Spider-Man movie. So, you know, Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2 is my favourite, and then right behind that I would put this movie, I think. Like, I've just seen the movie, so maybe after, you know, after a few months, once, you know, the movie's kind of simmered in my brain a bit, maybe it'll move somewhere else along the scale, but having just seen the movie for now, I would put it as my second most favourite Spider-Man movie. Okay, so one of the big problems a lot of people were kind of thinking this movie might have is that it's juggling way too many things, because for starters you got a bunch of different villains. You got Rhino, Electro and the Green Goblin. On top of that you have a bunch of different subplots, like, you know, Gwen and Peter just, you know, being boyfriend and girlfriend. You've got Peter trying to find the truth about his parents, all this stuff, and it's kind of a lot of stuff for a movie to kind of you know, bounce back and forth between and give, you know, each subplot and character enough time to develop, and whatnot. Like, that was one of the problems a lot of people had with Spider-Man 3. I personally thought they, in Spider-Man 3, I thought they did it fine. They juggled all the different storylines, you know, just fine, aside from Venom, like I've always been saying. So I never had a problem with that movie, but with this movie, yeah, it does get a bit kind of messy at parts. It feels a bit unfocused every now and again because of how much they are bouncing back and forth between all these different characters and storylines. And the thing is, one of these subplots really didn't need to be in the movie at all. One of the subplots of this movie is Peter trying to... he's trying to find the truth about his parents again, because of course... they cut that out of the last movie. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be in the previous movie, but they decided to cut it out at the last second. But yeah, so one of the subplots of this movie is Peter trying to find the truth about his parents, and the thing is, the revelation, like when you find out the truth about his parents, it's something so kind of uninteresting. You're just like, that was a complete waste of time. I'm not going to spoil it, but the truth about his parents... it's something you already assumed when you watched the first movie. Like, it's nothing you didn't already assume when you saw the first movie. And the thing is, this subplot takes up a fair amount of screen time as well. Like, this movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and this subplot takes up about 15 minutes of screen time, so... you know, that's quite a big chunk of screen time you're wasting here on this subplot, which just builds up to nothing. So, you know, there's just any scene... dwelling on that subplot, it's kind of like you're like, okay, come on, let's move on. Like, even when I was watching it, I was expecting, I kind of knew that the revelation wasn't going to be anything worth our time. I kind of suspected the revelation was going to be what it was, and when it turned out to be, when, you know, we actually found out the truth about his parents, I was like, that's it. You wasted 15 minutes of this movie just doing that. Like, you know, and those scenes are kind of just really boring anyway. Like, but yeah, so that's one subplot I had a big problem with. And, you know, like I said, this movie's already juggling enough stuff as there is, so for it to be wasting 15 minutes of time on that pointless subplot, it's kind of like, you know, somebody really should have cut that out. And the thing is, the truth about his parents, if you really wanted to kind of like ham-fist that so everyone gets it, even people who didn't assume this during the first movie, you could have like introduced this piece of information into the story some other way. Because, like I said, I'm not going to spoil it, but the truth about Peter's parents, he basically watches a video to find out the truth about his parents, and he spends like 50 minutes like doing some detective work before he finds the video and watches the video. You could have just had the video be on a USB stick and like stick it in that like little folder that Peter found. Like, you could have just done that instead of wasting 50 minutes where Peter's like spending 50 minutes to do a bunch of detective work before he eventually finds the video. Could have just had him find the video right off the bat instead of wasting so much time. So that's one subplot I had a big problem with. Another thing I kind of had a problem with here is any scene between Peter and Gwen. This scenes kind of just feel like a big load of nothing. Like, I kind of understand why they are there, but they could have made them a bit interesting to watch, I guess. Like, every time they're on screen, Peter and Gwen are on screen, they're kind of just talking, and what they are talking about, it's not really relevant or important at all. They're basically talking in circles. It's not furthering the story. It's not like, we're not learning anything new about the characters. It's just kind of... it feels like filler to me. It's like, oh, this is a Spider-Man movie, Gwen Stacy is his girlfriend, so we gotta, like, just try and, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Try and force some scenes in here with Gwen and Peter talking to one another, or everyone's going to be asking where Gwen is. That's what it kind of feels like. It feels like they really forced these scenes in there, like they shoehorned these scenes in there, and they're just not too interesting to watch. Like, the two characters, they're talking in circles, and the thing is, especially when there's a lot more interesting subplots going on, you're kind of like, okay, let's move along here. I'm really not interested in this, because like, the best part about this movie, in my opinion, is the villains. I thought Electro and Harry Osborn were awesome in this movie, and the thing is, because their stories are so interesting, and I was so like into their stories and interested in seeing where their stories were going to go, we keep cutting back to Gwen and Stacy, or that subplot about Peter trying to find the truth about his parents. So you're getting this really interesting scene with the villains, and then all of a sudden we're just going to cut back to Peter trying to find the truth about his parents, or Gwen and Peter talking about something really pointless, and you're just like, okay, come on, move along. So that was kind of annoying to me. Okay, what other things are there? There's also this one really terrible scene between Gwen and Stacy as well. Gwen and Peter, which I really hated. It's basically the scene where Gwen goes to get interviewed for Oxford University. She's trying to go for Oxford University. And she's going to go and get the interview. She's in the building and she's like late for her appointment. So she's about to walk into the elevator, which will, you know, take her to the room where she'll have the interview. And the thing is, Peter he kind of shows up and he's trying to talk to her, but she's like, I'm late, I gotta go for my interview. And he's like, hang on, let me just tell you something for like 1 second. So he kind of like, you know, stops her from going. He talks to her for like 60 seconds, then she's about to leave and go in the elevator, but then he stops her again and he's like, wait, let me tell you one more thing. Then he talks to her for another 60 seconds. She's about to leave again, then he stops her once again and starts to talk to her for like another 60 seconds, like, let me tell you one last thing. And that scene just dragged on like hell. It's like, Jesus, just move along. This scene is just really dragging. Yeah, that scene really sucked. Okay, let's get to the villains though. So, like I said, the villains to me, Electro and the Green Goblin. Like, Rhino is in the movie, but he's not in the movie much. He's in the movie for like 2 minutes, if that, so there's not much to say about him. Okay, but let's talk about the Green Goblin and Electro. Like I already said, when I saw the trailers for this thing and like the promotional stills, I hated the costumes of Electro and the Green Goblin. I just hated how they looked. Like, the costumes, they're just lame. And like, the thing is, I have read like the first 100 issues of the Spider-Man comics. And the thing is, I'm not pissed off that they changed the costumes. For those of you who don't know, the costumes of Electro and the Green Goblin in this movie are nothing like the costumes of Electro and the Green Goblin in the comics. Like, I don't know, so they changed the costumes from what they were in the comics. The thing is, I don't have a problem that they changed the costumes from what they were in the comics. My big issue with the costumes is that they just suck. Like, they just look awful and just really, really goofy and like just really lame, I guess. It's like, I'm not pissed off at the fact that they changed the costumes from what they were in the comics. I'm pissed off at the fact that they changed the costumes from what they were to something really awful. That's my problem with them. But the thing is, when the villains did finally show up and were like suited up in these costumes, I was so interested in the characters and so like interested in their stories. I didn't care what they looked like. Like, they looked really lame, but I was so into the characters and their stories. I was like along for the ride. So I didn't care what they looked like. I didn't care how goofy they looked like. I was just so into the characters. I was like, okay, whatever. I want to know what happens next. So, you know, that's a really good thing about the villains, especially compared to the original, you know, the previous movie with the Lizard. I mean, the Lizard, I didn't think he was a terrible villain, but like, he was okay. You know, I did like the actor that played him. He did a great job, but I'm saying that he was written poorly. That's my problem with the Lizard in the previous movie. It's like, it just made no sense. I mean, he becomes this giant lizard, his personality completely changes, and you might be saying, oh well, when you suddenly put someone into a position where they have a lot of power, they're going to go mad with power. I guess you're going to say, okay, well, basically you're trying to excuse the lazy writing. You're making excuses for the lazy writing to begin with. Because, you know, the lizard definitely needed a lot more screen time to kind of develop his motivations and whatnot. The thing is, it's like, you know, Dr. Connors, he becomes the lizard, and then all of a sudden he wants to turn everyone in New York City into giant lizards as well. It's like, who writes this shit? It's just, you know, what the hell was up with that? Anyway, back to Electro and the Green Goblin. So, I don't think this is much of a spoiler, but Harry Osborn doesn't become the Green Goblin until like the final 5 minutes of the movie, or the final 10 minutes of the movie. But even when he was Harry Osborn, you know, I was really into it. I was really into, you know, his character and all this, you know, stuff going on with him. Well, what else should I talk about here? One thing I've seen a lot of people complain about is Electro's motivations. I don't really have I never really had a problem with Electro's motivations in this movie. Like, some people think it's a bit far-fetched how Electro wants to kill Spider-Man all of a sudden. I completely disagree. I completely bought his motivations and whatnot, and you know, like the progression of his character. To me, it felt very natural. It felt very, you know, it flowed together very naturally, I guess. It felt fine to me. I didn't have a problem. Like, you know, the scene where the cops are like shooting at him, like, you know, he just literally just died. he like, you know, you see it in the trailer, he plunges to his death. The character of Max Dillon is Electro, but he plunges to his death and like dies in this like tank of electric eels. He later on, he's kind of like resurrected by his powers later on, and he has, you know, he can shoot electricity and all this crazy stuff. He's kind of like a lost, confused child wandering the streets. He's like, he doesn't know what the hell's going on. You know, he's just died. Because, you know, Electro, he's not a bad guy. He's kind of driven to be a bad guy, kind of. Like, they're trying to play him off as a sympathetic character, as a tragic character, kind of. And it worked for me. I felt bad for the guy. And like I already said, his motivations, everything felt natural to me. And none of it felt forced. Like, the scene with him... like the first battle scene with Electro was like awesome as well. I liked how like things very quickly escalated, because like I said, he kind of just died. He wakes up and he doesn't know what the hell's going on. He's got these powers. He's like, you know, he's like, what the hell's going on? The police kind of freak out when they see him and they start shooting at him in like Times Square. Fortunately for him, his powers kind of like dissolved the bullets before they hit him, so he's kind of immune to bullets. But at the same time, like, all the cops are shooting at him, so he's like scared as hell, doesn't know what the hell's going on. He unleashes the shockwave, which, like, you know, knocks all the police away, and then Spider-Man shows up and tries to talk him down. Unfortunately for Electro and Spider-Man, there's like this sniper who shoots Electro, and that makes Electro freak out even more, and he like kills the policeman as like a knee-jerk reaction, and Spider-Man starts beating the shit out of him. You know, I felt that that felt natural to me. Like, in combination with, you know, the crowd calling it Electro a freak and whatnot, it all felt fine to me. And the thing is, they clearly established that Max Dillon, just to clarify that once again, Max Dillon is Electro. And the thing is, they clearly established before Max Dillon became Electro that Max Dillon was a bit of a like schizo anyway. Like, the guy was clearly a bit unhinged anyway. I mean, you see him talking to himself in his like apartment. I mean, I know everyone talks to themselves. Like, we all talk to ourselves every now and again, but the way Max Dillon was doing it in his apartment, the dude's clearly got a few screws loose. Like, I still felt bad for the guy, but I'm just saying, he was clearly a bit unhinged anyway, so that, like, you know, definitely so, like, I guess that helped me understand his motivations and how he wanted to kill Spider-Man a bit more, I guess. And the thing is, by the time he was imprisoned and he was getting tortured by that, like, that weird scientist guy, I guess you could understand why he would be so pissed off. He would just want to go nuts and kill everyone by that point. I don't know, it just felt natural to me, like I said. One thing I thought was kind of weird is that Spider-Man is a bit of a dick in this movie. Like, everything bad that happens to Spider-Man in this movie, he kind of deserves it. Like, the only reason, the only reason Harry Osborn becomes the Green Goblin is because Spider-Man has been a bit of a dick to him. And the only reason Electro just goes completely psycho and wants to kill everyone is because Spider-Man's been a dick to him. Okay, both of these things is kind of debatable. Once you've seen the movie, you might agree or disagree, but I guess this is something, it's down to your own, like, personal interpretation or opinion, I guess. But I personally just felt as if Spider-Man handled these situations poorly, because the only reason Electro kind of goes absolutely psycho is because Spider-Man starts beating the shit out of him. Because the thing is, Electro, Spider-Man's trying to talk to Electro and try and calm him down. Because, you know, Electro's got these powers, he doesn't know what's going on, the cops just shot at him, he's kind of scared, he's like, you know, he's a bit tense, and then Spider-Man's trying to talk to him and try and calm him down, and then, you know, when the sniper shoots Electro like immediately kills him, like, as like a knee-jerk reaction. Like, he doesn't even think, he just does it as soon as the sniper shoots him. So he kind of does it automatically. And Spider-Man, if I remember correctly, Spider-Man immediately attacks Electro after, like, Electro kills the sniper. Spider-Man immediately starts attacking him and beating the shit out of him, and from that point onwards, Electro's just defending himself. Like, Electro is just defending himself from Spider-Man. And, like, a lot of innocent people are getting hurt in the crossfire. But it's not as if Electro intended to hurt anyone. It's just that innocent people are getting hurt in the crossfire. Because, you know, he's defending himself from Spider-Man, and innocent people are getting caught in the crossfire. So, to me, I thought as if Electro, you know, I thought he was pretty sympathetic. I bought his motivations. And like I said, I personally feel as if Spider-Man is to blame for Max Dillon becoming what he became. Like, you know, Spider-Man's, well, not completely, but mostly to blame. I think Spider-Man's mostly to blame. As for the Green Goblin, I don't want to really spoil too much about why Harry Osborn becomes the Green Goblin, but again, I think it's Spider-Man's fault mostly. Spider-Man has just been a bit of a prick to Harry. Again, this is kind of debatable. You might agree, you might disagree. I personally agree. I personally think Spider-Man is responsible for Harry Osborn becoming the Green Goblin. There are some people, I have seen a lot of people say the same thing. There are people who agree with me out there. Yeah, like I said, I don't really want to describe the scene too much because it's kind of later on in the movie and it's a bit of a spoiler. Well, not kind of a spoiler. But yeah, I kind of feel as if it's kind of Spider-Man's to blame. If they want, like, I'm not sure if the writers intended for Spider-Man to come across as a douchebag here. Like, I'm not sure if that's what the writers intended. I personally don't think it was. I think it's kind of the writers, they just kind of did a poor job of writing the Spider-Man character here. Like, I don't think they intended for Spider-Man to be, you know, to come across as a dickhead here. It's just they accidentally wrote him to be a dickhead, I think. That's just the way I felt about him. Let's talk about Andrew Garfield's performance as Spider-Man as well. I'm not really into Andrew Garfield. He's fine. He's okay. He's serviceable. That's what I'll say. He's serviceable as Spider-Man, but I do prefer Tobey Maguire. I think I'm one of few people that think this, but I do prefer Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. One thing okay, one problem I had with this movie is the quips. Like, as Spider-Man is fighting Electro well, actually, he didn't quip when he was fighting the Green Goblin, but when he's fighting, like, Electro or just, like, normal criminals, he's, like... He's, you know... He's yelling out these one-liners, these quips, and they're just really lame. I had a problem with them in the first Amazing Spider-Man movie. I have a problem with them here. They're just really lame. I'm not, yeah, like, I understand the Spider-Man, that's the Spider-Man character. He keeps, you know, letting out all these, like, quips and shit. Like, I know he does that a lot in the comics, so the comic book fans are always like, well, that's what he's like in the comics, so it's okay. No, it doesn't make it okay if the quips suck, because the quips are just really annoying. Like, I know in the Sam Raimi trilogy, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man didn't quip as much. He did quip every now and again, but not as much as Spider-Man did in the comics. But the thing is, the quips in the Sam Raimi movies, they were fine. I didn't have a problem with them. They felt natural. They didn't feel forced like they do in these movies, and they weren't lame and annoying. Like, you know, I have a knack for that. Here's your change. They felt natural. They gelled together well. They didn't feel forced and annoying, which they do in this movie. You know, like, it's no good making Spider-Man. It's no good making Spider-Man more true to the comic book Spider-Man if the quips are really forced and just lame and annoying. Like, it's no good putting these quips in there if they feel forced and annoying. That's what I'm saying. So the quips, I wasn't too fond of them. The action scenes they're decent. They're pretty good. Like, the special effects, for the most part, they are solid. But occasionally, especially towards the end, it feels a bit video gamey. Like, it feels like because there's such a high amount of CGI, it feels like you're watching a video game sometimes. But for the most part, the special effects are solid. The initial Electro fight scene, like the first showdown between Spider-Man and Electro in Times Square, I thought that was a great scene. Like I said, I really liked how the situation escalated and how, you know, the police were like attacking Electro and Spider-Man was trying to calm him down. I really liked how the situation gradually escalated. And even when Spider-Man and Electro were full on just fighting each other, I thought that was a great scene as well. You know, it's a solid action. One thing I was really surprised by with this movie is that it's a really talky movie. Like, there's only like five or six action scenes in the whole entire movie, and a lot of those action scenes are only like 2 minutes long. And this is like a 2 hour and 20-minute long movie as well. So I was quite surprised by that. So I think some kids will actually be kind of bored by this movie. Like, I know it's a Spider-Man movie, so a lot of kids are going to want to see it anyway, but I think a lot of kids are going to be kind of restless or a bit bored doing the movie. Because, you know, it's quite dialogue heavy, and like I said, there's not much action scenes for a 2 hour and 20 minute long movie. And like I said, you know, I'm fine with that, obviously, but I'm just saying, I could imagine a lot of kids out there kind of like getting a bit restless, a bit exhausted, a bit tired when watching this movie. I think the two standout performances in this movie would be Jamie Foxx as Electro. Like I said, I found him really sympathetic. I thought he did a great job as Electro and Max Dillon, whatever you want to call him. The other standout performance I would say is the guy who played Harry Osborn or Green Goblin, whatever you want to call it. The guy's name I can't remember, and I feel really bad because he is a really good actor. I really should start remembering his name. His first name is Dane. The actor's first name is Dane. I'm not sure what his last name is, I can't remember, but I know he was Andrew in Chronicle, another awesome movie. Yeah, I want to see this guy in a lot more movies, because he is a really good actor. Like, in Chronicle, he did an amazing job. He does a fantastic job in this one as well. Like, I love the scene where he and Electro, that's not a spoiler, at some point in the movie, or several points of the movie, Electro and Harry Osborn, they interact with each other several times throughout the movie. But the first ever time Harry Osborn and Electro interacted with each other in the prison, I thought that was a great scene. Like, I was so into the movie at that point. I just really liked the interactions and how, like, you know, how when Harry Osborn was getting dragged off by the police, I loved how he was like screaming at Electro. I thought that was a great scene. And again, really, really good acting from the guy who played Harry Osborn, Dane, whatever his last name. Like I said, I want to see that actor in a lot more stuff, because he is a damn good actor. If you haven't seen Chronicle, check it out, because that's a fantastic movie. And, you know, it's the same actor who plays Harry Osborn. He's the main character in Chronicle, and he does an amazing job in that movie as well. So, if you haven't seen Chronicle, check it out. Yeah, so I do want to see that actor in a lot more movies, because he is really, really good. And that's the thing, though, because he's playing Harry Osborn, and Harry Osborn is like this young, kind of rich kid kind of thing. And the thing is, you can easily piss me off with a character like that, this like young rich kid, bad guy. You can really easily make a character like that appear really douchey and whatnot. And the thing is, he is the villain, so I'm not sure if we're supposed to like him or not, Harry Osborn. The thing is, like I said, a character like this, like naturally, it's something which could really make me mad. I could really easily hate a character like this, because it's just like some young rich douchebag kid kind of thing. But the thing is, because he was played by an actor that I really, really like, I was kind of like, I was really liking the character because of that. One thing, John Jameson, he's not in the movie, the head of the Daily Bugle. He's not in the movie, but like Peter does interact with him using emails. So you don't see him in person, but he does like email Peter at some point. So I'm kind of getting the impression that Mark Webb, or whoever decides the casting, is too scared to cast John Jameson. Because of course, in the original Sam Raimi trilogy, J.K. Simmons was amazing as John Jameson, and I kind of feel as if Mark Webb, or whoever decides the casting, is too scared to cast a new actor as John Jameson. Because the thing is, J.K. Simmons did say, he has gone on record saying that he is willing to come back and play John Jameson in these new movies if they ask him to, but that's only if they ask him to. So I really hope they do, because, you know, I feel bad for whoever they cast to play John Jameson now, because I don't think anyone's going to be able to top John Jameson. J.K. Simmons, he is John Jameson to a lot of people now. So I do feel bad for whatever new actor they, you know, hired to play John Jameson. I don't think he's going to be able to top J.K. Simmons. I think everyone's just going to shit on the new actor who plays him, because, you know, you can't top J.K. Simmons. So I know that Mark Webb did say that we will actually see John Jameson in the third movie. So hopefully they will get J.K. Simmons back to play him. But I don't think they will, as much as I would like them to. To quickly talk about the music. I thought the music, for the most part, it's just really generic. It's like really generic superhero movie music. It's not good. Like, the music in the Sam Raimi trilogy was far superior, let's just say that. However, Electro, I like the music doing Electro's first fight scene though. Like, it's really weird. It's like, it's hard to describe, but it's like, it's got lyrics, like, it's got this weird chanting going on in the music. It's really weird, but it's good though, you know. Like, I really like the music doing Electro's first fight scene. Just one of many awesome things about that first fight scene. Like I said, I really like that first fight scene with Electro and how like everything started to escalate. Okay, okay. I'm not going to talk about this. I was looking at my notes here. I'm not going to talk about that yet because it's kind of a spoiler. I think I'm kind of done though. Just looking at my notes here. Okay, yeah, so I think I'm pretty much done. Like I said, the movie's not a perfect movie. I did really, really like the movie. It's not a perfect movie though. Like I said, it has some pacing issues because it has that really irrelevant, pointless subplot where Peter's trying to find the truth about his parents that we already know about. And there's also, you know, the scenes between Gwen and Peter, which I personally thought were just like, you know, I understand why they put those scenes in there, but they weren't too interesting to watch. One last thing, let's talk about the humour, I guess. There's a lot, you know, there's a lot of jokes in the movie. Some of them do work, some of them are genuinely funny. A lot of them kind of miss the mark though, and are kind of cringy to watch. Oh yeah, there's also this especially terrible moment towards the end of the movie involving a kid wearing a Spider-Man costume. There's like this little boy wearing a Spider-Man costume, and it's so bad. It's really cringy. It's not as bad as the crane sequence in The Amazing Spider-Man, because God knows we all know how like awful that little sequence was. It's not quite as bad as the crane sequence, but it's still quite bad. It's still kind of cringy. I didn't talk about Rhino much. I quickly want to put this out here. I despise Rhino's suit. I hate it. It's awful. Why did they turn him into a Transformer? Like I said, I know like his Rhino suit in the comic book is really goofy and it's kind of like I guess that would be really hard to put in this series of movies. Especially in this series of movies, they're trying to make it really dark. Well, not really dark, but a bit more darker than the Sam Raimi trilogy. So I guess the actual Rhino suit from the comic books wouldn't quite work in this movie because it's a bit too campy and goofy and silly, I guess, for this movie series. I kind of get why they changed it, but they changed it to this like Transformer robot thing. It just looks awful. Like, it's only in the movie for like 2 minutes, but it's just dreadful. I hate it. Let's talk. I quickly want to talk about the tone again, though. So, there's a lot of jokes throughout the movie, of course, these light-hearted moments, but the thing is, I felt as if they didn't balance them too well, because you get this really dark, grim, dramatic scene where Max Dillon, you see in the trailer where he's like, he's a bit of a loner character, he's really sympathetic, and, the Oscorp company are, like, forcing him to work on, like, it's his birthday, but they're forcing him to work, like, overtime. But as he's trying to repair these, like, electrical wires, he, like, trips, falls, and plunges to his horrible, painful death, where he, like, he gets, like, electrocuted by all these eels and gets killed by them. Like, it's a really grim scene. It's like, a pretty dark scene. And you feel really bad for the guy. It's quite a depressing scene. And then, immediately, the next scene is, like, Andrew Garfield being, like, really quirky, and, like, like me, I'm being quirky, pulling all these jokes and cracking all these jokes and stuff. It just doesn't work. It's like, one moment you get this really dark, really dramatic scene where Max Dillon plunges to his horrible, painful death, and then immediately we have Andrew Garfield being really goofy. It just didn't work. Again, we get like these similar moments later on, like when Harry Osborn, when he like becomes the Green Goblin, he kind of like mutates into the Green Goblin. And you get this really dark, scary scene where he's mutating into the Green Goblin, and then immediately the next scene is Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker like doing all these goofy, funny stuff, and it doesn't work. They could have like spaced the scary moments a bit further away from the moments where they're trying to be funny. It just doesn't work like as close together as they were. I think I'm done now. I'm going to get into spoilers in a minute, but yeah, that's what I thought about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Oh, I know I bitched about the movie a lot, but I still just want to clarify here at the very end, I did think it was a great movie. I really liked it. The movie won me over, because like I said, I hated the costumes of the villains. The costumes were just awful. But the thing is, by the time the villains were in the costumes, I was so into the characters and interested in where the story was going, I didn't care what they looked like. The action is solid. I love the villains, like I said. I love the stories, I love the characters. And Jamie Foxx and the guy who plays Harry Osborn do a fantastic job. Andrew Garfield, he's fine. But I was never too fond of him as Peter Parker anyway. But, the movie's not perfect, like I said. There's some pacing issues, like that pointless subplot with Peter's parents. Any scene between Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker just drags on longer than they need to. But yeah, like I said, it's still a great movie. I really enjoyed it. There's no point in me recommending this. It's Amazing Spider-Man 2. You know if you're going to see this or not. You don't need me to tell you whether or not you're going to see it. Okay, so that's what I thought about Amazing Spider-Man 2. Great movie, and I am actually looking forward to the third movie. I'm looking forward to see what they do with the third movie. Because it's no secret that they're doing the Sinister Six. I don't think the Sinister Six is going to be in the third movie, but this movie alludes to the Sinister Six a lot. Not to spoil it, but this movie alludes to the Sinister Six a lot. And I think we're going to get the Sinister Six in the Amazing Spider-Man 4. Not quite in the third movie, but, you know, Amazing Spider-Man 4, I think that's when the Sinister Six is going to be, you know, coming into play. But yeah, great movie. Really liked it. I'm going to get into spoilers now, so if you don't want spoilers, you better get out. Okay, so, on to spoilers we go. So, one thing I really hated, okay, so Gwen does die at the end of the movie. For those of you who don't read the comics, that's a big thing. A lot of people were kind of like wondering about this movie because in the comic books, the Green Goblin dropped Gwen Stacy off a bridge. Spider-Man like caught her with his web, but the thing is, you know, as she was falling, he caught her with his web. But the thing is, he jolted her so hard with his web, it like broke her neck, and that's what killed her in the comic books. And they do the same thing in the movie. Well, it's kind of the same thing. Like, the Green Goblin doesn't drop her off a bridge. She kind of falls off a church tower while Peter Parker is fighting the Green Goblin. She falls off, like, the church tower. Peter catches her with his web. And, like, he kind of, like, jolts her. You know, it's basically the comic books. It's kind of vague. It, like, breaks her back or her neck. It's not really clear. But you know, it kills her basically, and she kind of like another thing. Not only does she kind of like break her back and her neck, whatever you want to call it, her neck, back, whatever. Not only does like her back snap as well, her head like smashes right across, like right into the floor of the, like when he jolts her, like she's like an inch away from hitting the floor, so her head like jolts back as well, and her head like smashes right into the concrete floor as well. I thought that was a really. Like, that was quite a brutal scene for, like, you know, this movie is like, I'm not sure. What is it in America? I think it's PG-13. Over here it's rated 12. But, you know, for a movie rated 12, that was quite a grisly scene. Like, everyone was kind of really, everyone's eager to know whether or not they, was really eager to know whether or not they were going to actually go through with her death scene. But even if they did go through with her death scene, everyone is kind of like wondering, you know, how dark are they going to do it? Is she going to die like she did in the comic books? Are they going to water her down? But no, you know, I was really pleased with her death scene. It doesn't feel watered down at all. They didn't cop out. It's a, you know, it feels very satisfying. So if you're a big fan of the comic books and you really wanted to see that moments from the comic books in the movie, you're gonna get what you wanted, and it is done tastefully. Like, it's done like in a satisfactory way. Like the way she dies, they don't cop out on it. Peter breaks her spine. It's done very well. So I did like her death scene. But one thing I hate was her graduation speech. Like at the start of the movie, she kind of does this graduation speech, and it's kind of recorded as well. And when she's giving the graduation speech, she's kind of talking about like the importance of life, and you know, life doesn't last forever. Like these kind of, you know, that sort of stuff. It feels really ham-fisted. You know, it feels like they're like bashing your head across the, you know, against the wall. Like, look at how clever we're being. We're gonna kill her later on. And her speech here is kind of, I don't know. It felt really ham-fisted to me. And the thing is, Peter, like, after she gets killed at the end of the movie as well, Peter plays, because they recorded her graduation speech. Peter watches the graduation speech again, and we as the audience have to listen to the speech again. And it just feels really ham-fisted. Nah, I didn't like that. Wasn't too fond of that. Okay, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about quickly here. It'll come to me now. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to clarify was why I think Peter Parker is a douchebag in relation to Harry Osborn. Because for those of you who haven't seen the movie yet, Harry Osborn, he learns he's got the same life-threatening disease that his father did, which will eventually kill him. And he's like, he basically works out that Spider-Man's blood will cure him, will stop the disease. And so he asks Peter Parker to bring Spider-Man to him, so he can ask Spider-Man to give him some blood. So Spider-Man shows up at Harry Osborn's like you know, penthouse, whatever you want to call it, his you know, his little home. And basically Spider-Man's like, I can't give you my blood. Sorry, bro. And then he leaves. That's it. And you know, Harry Osborn is pissed off, which is understandable as well. Like that scene didn't sit right with me. Like, you know, Peter Parker, Harry Osborn, they were childhood friends, and he kind of just blows him off like that. Like, I know what you're gonna say, because this is what, like, the people who think Spider-Man isn't a douchebag, the people who are in the Spider-Man was not being a douchebag camp, those people, they like to argue that basically there's this risk that Spider-Man's blood will not cure Harry, but instead will kill him. Like that's the kind of moral dilemma they're trying to bring up. Because that's what Spider-Man does briefly say that to Harry Osborn. He's like, well, yeah, my blood could cure you, but the thing is, it could kill you as well. It's like a 50-50 chance. So I'm not going to give you my blood because of that. And then he leaves. And I don't know, that felt like a little like plot line, or like that felt like an element of the plot which they needed to develop a bit more. Because I don't know, that kind of like, because when Spider-Man was trying to explain that, I was kind of sitting there like, what? Did I miss something? What is he talking about? Like, there's a chance my blood could kill you? Like, what? So I think that's just down to bad script writing there. That they kind of needed to like emphasize that a bit more. The fact that Spider-Man's blood for some reason could potentially kill Harry as well. I don't know, they kind of like brought that plot point up out of nowhere. I'm not sure where the hell that came out from, or at what point of the movie they established that. But Spider-Man just starts saying that to Harry, like doing the scene. I was kind of sitting there like, wait, what's he talking about? But the thing is, even then, he's not being really what's the word I'm looking for? He's not really. He doesn't really seem to be empathetic towards Harry Osborn, or sympathetic towards Harry Osborn. He kind of shows up and he's like, I'm not going to give you my blood because it could kill you. Bye, and he leaves. Like, he could have handled that situation a bit better. Like I said, I don't think the script writers intend for Peter to come across as a douchebag. It's bad writing. I think that's what it is. I think it's bad writing, and that they are accidentally writing Spider-Man to be a douchebag. I think that's the problem here. So yeah, you can try and like argue it all you want, but to me, Spider-Man, he could have handled that scene a lot better than he did. Because like I said, he shows up and he's like, I'm not going to give you my blood because my blood could kill you. Bye. And bang, he just leaves. It's like, dude, you could have kind of like talked to him a bit more and be like, I'm really sorry, bro, but I really can't do this. He could have been a bit more, a bit easier on the guy. Instead, he just leaves. He's like, wow, what a douchebag. Okay, I think I'm done though. I think that's all I have to say. So yeah, great movie. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm done. So thanks for watching, and see ya.